Hello, welcome to the American Business Podcast. This is Kevin Deveci, your host. Today is our season 1, episode 34. We are getting close to completing our season 1 and we are very excited. And season 2 is starting in June. So we are motivated and we are looking forward to it. Also, today's number is, let's bring it to our screen, 55.8 million. The US population age 65 and over reached 55.8 million in 2020. So that is the number today. Speaking of that, we have a great guest and we'll talk about different subjects today, as well as the effect of retirement and aging population and impact of it on working population. All right, great. So let's welcome our guest today. All right, so great. Janet, welcome to the podcast.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. I really want to tell you how happy I am to be here. It's very exciting to see what you're doing in the American Business Podcast and how you're growing. So I continue to wish you uh, good things happening as the year goes on and millions of people tuning in.
Yes, appreciate it. Thank you very much for being with us, and thank you for your support. Well, as a start, would you please introduce yourself and your company to our audience?
Oh, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Jeanette Galvanic, and I'm the founder and CEO of CareWise Solutions. And it's both a nonprofit organization as well as a for profit organization. And we're basically focused on helping our society understand and act on uh, this aging of the boomer generation that's happening all around us. Put it in context, figure out how to do some planning for ourselves, and to make sure that we're able to maintain our own lifestyles. So it's a complicated issue. I'm not in healthcare delivery, I'm into workforce development, staffing, life management. How's that, Kevin?
Sounds great. Would you please tell us about your career in terms of how did you get started?
Ah, well, I got started with CareWise Solutions a few years ago, and that career kind of found me. Uh, I was a senior executive at actually the largest telecommunications company in the world. So I got to sit at the board table and in the C-suite, and I was doing really well. Pretty. My mom was very happy to see me on TV and on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. You know, those kinds of things that make you go, yeah, great. But what happened was that we adopted two girls from Eastern Europe, and one was 5 and the other one was 2. And they, after the first year, presented with some developmental disabilities, which we now know ends up being a more common situation than we did, 20 years ago. But anyway, the situation was that you don't really talk about family and you don't talk about disabilities when you're sitting in the boardroom. And being the only woman there, I clearly wasn't going to talk about it. So as I continued to do what I needed to do professionally, I found more and more that my life was getting unraveled. And I finally left that position burnt out and needing to repair my life and my health and well-being. So that's the story.
And when you look at your job, if you can tell us a little bit more, what are the exciting and challenging parts of your work?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest challenge is that in the beginning, I thought that I was dealing with disability care and how could we be operating in the world without an adequate system because you would consider disability of millions of people in the United States, whether it's autism or a more serious issue. I shouldn't say more cerebral palsy, blindness, those kinds of issues that are more in upfront for the general population to understand. But how could we not have in America the kind of structure that we need so that families can work, maintain their income, and make sure that those that they love are getting the support that they need? And I couldn't understand it. So in my mind, I kept circling around, and then I started physically circling around and say, how could this be? How could this be? And then I rolled into the conversation about elder care. And I found out that, well, of course, everybody's talking about elder care because we've got 70 million baby boomers who are aging. And just like every other phase of their life, they're going to disrupt what we're doing. And so I started really looking at that, peeling the onion, as the old metaphor is, to say, well, what are really the impacts of that aging baby boomer situation on where we are, you know? And the what I thought about is that, and I think this is where we are as a nation, is that when the baby boomers were born and they turned 5, they were ready to go to school, right? And if somebody didn't plan for them, they would have been on the front lawn, and there wouldn't have been enough teachers, there wouldn't have been school buildings, there wouldn't have been enough desks, books, blah, 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 blah. You get the idea. Now we've got 70 million baby boomers that, 10,000 of them are turning 65 every day. And we don't have a school, we don't have the teachers, we don't have the seats. It's really pretty devastating, and it impacts both the quality of life of those who need care, and it impacts the quality of their life in what we call longevity society, because we're all living longer. It's not like you get old and you die the next week. We're around for a long time. People are talking about living to 100,
Hmm.
and I like that idea. So anyway, the challenge is to get people to understand that context just around the me's who need support and want to feel like they're not a burden on anybody. And then I started looking at what happened to me, and I said, how could someone who supposedly had everything you could possibly want, how could I burn out and lose everything? I mean, how could that happen? So then I pivoted to look at the whole employment scene. And the challenge is that people don't look at it in with this mindset. So I think I'd say that's the biggest challenge: education, and saying, and everybody I talk to after we have this discussion, they say, never thought about it that way. And I wanted to get into doing things. And then I found out that the doing that I had to do was educating. So that's kind of a long story, but that's the big
Hmm.
challenge: educating and realizing that we're in an emerging market.
Yes, let's dive deeper a little bit if that's okay. So, in your opinion, um, the so there is a retiring generation in the US, and also there is a working generation in US. And how is the effect retiring generation on the workforce?
Yeah,
What is
well,
your take on that?
yeah. Well, first of all, the let's talk about the people who are aging, and that we have a multi-generational workforce, right? So, some people make it out to be an issue. I personally don't believe that it's an issue, because so many aging baby boomers have wisdom. Our generation was really skilled in management and thinking about things differently. Our companies invested in us being the best that we could be because we had a long-term relationship. So if you turn 65 or whatever, your company cutoff is, that you usually stop getting pension money in your account, and you say, I'm going to go somewhere else. What we have are baby boomers who don't want to quit. They want to keep working another 20 years. And now it's not uncommon for people to be working into their 80s. So the availability of this skilled and more wise workforce is there if we indeed have flexibility about when they fit in on their terms. So I think it's a great opportunity. It's kind of like the baby boomer gig workers. You call them and they can come in. They could, some of them are rocket scientists, and some of them are frontline workers at Whole Foods, but they show up on time, they work hard, and they like to mentor other people. So that's very, very exciting. So it's a new labor market. Now, as the flip on that, though, about the workforce is that as we get older, it doesn't happen overnight unless you're in an accident or you fall down and break your hip. We get a little bit slower, and it might take 5, 8 years. And during that time period, the current employees who are, let's just say, baby boomers' kids, right? That all of a sudden, all right, so I'm going to bring mom over dinner once or twice a week, and maybe I have to pick up some financial work, pay her bills. And then it's, the discussion about, gee, do you want to stay in this house? It's kind of a big house. But then as this time progresses, that family member who works, 80% of us work. It's not like in the past that there was a primary caregiver at home waiting for you to get old so they can take care of you and bring you, apple pies at the end of the day. So what happens is that, like with me, you start to lose the amount of time and focus that you could have on your job. And most people do not disclose the fact that they have these aging family issues. So, like me, they hit it. And the workforce is not really cool about you having emergencies. I was in Costa Rica a couple weeks ago, and I was interviewing uh, the head waiter in a major hotel chain. He had approached me and said, "Gee, I understand you do this kind of stuff. I want to talk to you." So he said, "I'll meet you tomorrow at the food court." This is like in Costa Rica, right? And this is an international issue. So anyway, I'm interviewing Alan, and at the end, after he goes through all how his wife works, he works, she's going to school. They have two kids, and they have two parents on each side who are in that aging situation. So I said to Alan, I said, "Look, let's talk about the work issue. How many people work with you?" He said, 15. I said, "How many of them have these aging issues?" And, 14. And I went like, "What?" And I said, "Well, so let me ask you, what happens when you have an emergency?" Well, the first time everybody goes, "Oh, sure, go take care of everything." And I said, "What happens the second time?" He said, "Everybody kind of scratches their head and says, I hope this doesn't happen again because I have to pick up your workload." And yeah, well, I might make some more tips in the dining area. I can't do all that because then I'm really exhausted at the end of the day. And I said to Alan, "Alan, what happens the third time?" And he cracked up laughing. He said, "Jeanette, there never is a third time. If there's a third time, you lose your job. Whether it's the boss or your peers, you're out of there." And I said to him, what has to happen, Alan? That's the same thing in America. I said, and I talk to people all over, from Brazil to Australia, all over. It's the same issue. I said, "So what does your employer do about this?" "Well, they don't really care." I said, "How could they not care?" I said, if the majority of your workforce are facing these issues, what are they going to do if all of you quit and go somewhere else?" He said, "I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do." I said, "Tell me, what would you do?" And he said, "I don't know. Something big has to happen. Something really, really big has to happen because we can't fix this ourselves." And that's what's going on. You know, it's big, and
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
hidden. It's hidden. It's a hidden crisis. It's bubbling. And I'm sure, Kevin, you and I have talked before about your
Yes.
family, and we all seem to know somebody who's facing these kind of situations, but we don't think about it as being as massive as it really is.
I like to shift our conversation towards AI a little bit, if that's okay.
Ah, yeah,
So, how do you see it coming up in terms of affecting businesses? And do you think AI will replace
yeah.
jobs?
Yeah, that's a good topic because I don't know if you've been following the news this week with Axios and talking about. I guess there's a CEO out in California maybe who was talking about AI is going to cause a bloodbath of white collar workers. So that's been the buzz in the media this week, and I've I've thought to myself, I'm a workforce expert. That's my brand. And when I look at this, I don't think that tech person ought to be saying that because I don't know what facts he has to back that up. I personally have learned how to use AI, and it is really of value to me. It has streamlined my job. It is, it helps me think about things in different ways. Do I work less hours? The answer is no. It probably gets me working more because it stimulates thinking. So, I don't buy into this bloodbath thing. I think that AI is terrific. I think it needs to be managed, and it needs to be managed in institutions at the top of the house, you know. Right now, kind of like what I'm talking about with this whole aging thing, it's down it's down in the middle and lower parts of the organization where people are trying to talk about it and figure things out. But this, we're once again, we're talking about a structural shift, excuse me, a structural shift that needs leadership. And you can't introduce technology without knowing what you want the technology to do. So AI assists us. AI does not drive us. If we allow AI to drive us, we've got, you know, the cart, the horse before the cart, no, the cart before the horse, but anyway, backwards. So, you know, workflow, work design, what's your goal of your business is what ought to be driving strategy. And unless CEOs say that's my job, that's the C-suite job, uh, we're going to have a lot of crises and we're going to have these things that make the nightly news. And we don't need to. Good planning, good execution will improve the way we operate, I believe. Yeah.
Jenna, do you have decades of experience, professional experience? Um, have you had any role models? Can you tell us about your role models in your career journey?
Oh, yeah, yeah. You know, Kevin, I had the honor of being the head of technical development and human resources at Bell Laboratories. And I have to tell you that when I say honor, there has to be a bigger word for that. But, you know, Nobel Prize winners would come in and, you know, flip a candy bar on my desk and put their feet up, and we'd talk about things that were, you know, the black hole. Arno Penzias was one of my big role models. Arno was not only brilliant, and he and his colleague at Bell Labs, you know, identified the black hole, but the people who invented transistors and on and on and on and on. No matter where I walked, there was another role model, you know. But after, you know, 25 years at my telecommunications company, which now people figure out where I was, but that I think that my biggest role models are my daughters, and because I am so uh, I'm so excited how they've embraced the challenges in their life. Having been orphans, my older daughter was an abused and abandoned kid. To have come from that kind of disparity, and they were a highly discriminated against group of people. To come against ethnic cleansing, to come against abuse, abandonment, living in an orphanage, and then coming to America, they could have chosen to become bad girls, you know, and they're wonderful human beings. They're caring, they're smart, they work hard. They've become like you know, my little managers, you know, and I'm so proud of people who overcome the challenges and barriers and just assume that's who they ought to be. So yeah, there's some big role models, big ones, but people who really have demonstrated courage are the people that I admire the most.
How about some lessons learned that you can share with us? Any lessons learned that comes to your
Yeah,
mind?
yeah. Yeah, I used to get myself in a lot of trouble because I was, you know, I was a thinker and a strategist, and I also had legs. So I think about something, and people would say, you know, she thinks about it one day and it's getting done the next, you know, and it's true, which was really disruptive for people because most of us really don't want change in our jobs or our lives. We want some stability. And, you know, my challenge was to figure out how to bridge where I was to where people were at and bring them along, uh, and also to hear what they had to say, so they bring me along. You know? So I think I think that was really a key learning, and I think the courage, again, the word courage, the guts, the courage, the willingness to be a leader in unfamiliar places. Because at the end of it all, what matters is how you behaved and did you make a positive impact on the people that you should be serving, you know? John Sell, so, or John Sell. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So anyway, that's yeah, that's I think being your genuine self, having courage, guts, and bring people along with you and go along with them too.
Yeah, sounds good. So, well, um, uh, we are the American Business Podcast for the next generation. So the most important mission that we have is to share informative content, educational content with next generation as well as today's.
Right.
So for the next generation, do you have any career advice that you can share with them while they are getting ready to enter the market as well as starting their careers?
Yeah, yeah. I think the one message, and I know that I give this to my daughter and her friends, and they're not babies anymore; they're young adults. Is that there's a again, it's a mindset shift. We're not in the industrial era anymore, and a lot of people you work with have that industrial era structure. You've got to be there exactly at 8 o'clock, or you're late, or you've got to do it my way. And I think that I would say to people, look, we have to jointly educate each other, and we have to advocate for ourselves. But you don't want to burn bridges with those people who operate differently. So you have to walk in their shoes a little bit, but you also have to be able to go in and communicate what you need, which means you have to be clear about who you are. And because of all this turmoil and change that everybody's experiencing, I think more this next generation needs to say, I'm in charge of my career, I'm in charge of my life, and I need to negotiate to get where I want. That doesn't mean I get aggressive, it doesn't mean I offend people. It means that I build my plan, I communicate, and then I make progress towards that plan and help people support me. That's, I think, really important.
Thank you very much for this. Well, for those listeners that we have an audience, anyone who likes to get in touch with you and continue this conversation, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. I'll do it personally. They can contact me on Jeanette at carewisesolutions.com. That's my direct email. I strongly encourage you I have three websites, but I would direct you to the one that's a little bit more educationally oriented. That's www.carewisesolutions.org. So go there, scout around. If you have questions, let me know. But remember that just as I'm talking about in your life and your career, advocating, look around and see if there are people who are struggling with this issue. See what you can do to support them. And by the way, make sure that you start thinking about what you're going to do in your family. And if you're getting a little bit older, what you're going to do for yourself. Contact me, email me, go on the website. And if you want to do something in your corporation or your nonprofit organization, for profit organization, let me know. We've got a whole suite platform of education and hub services and other things that could help ease everybody's life. Uh, that's it. That's the story.
Janet, thank you very much for being with us today, and I wish you a great weekend.
Oh, thanks, Kevin. You have a great one too.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye bye now.
Thank you very much. Bye now. Well, to our audience and to our listeners, that was another great conversation that we have on the American Business Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll continue these conversations on weekly basis. Well, as you know, we just passed 30,000 YouTube subscribers on YouTube. If you haven't done so, please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to the American Business Podcast for the next generation, ABP. We really appreciate your support. Please subscribe, like, and share your thoughts on our YouTube channel. And please join this growing business community. Also, if you have an idea, if you like to be a guest in our podcast, if you know someone who likes to be a guest, you can send us an email, americanbusinesspodcast@gmail.com. We keep an open mind. We are very responsive, so feel free to reach out. If you have feedback, we also welcome it as well. We love to hear from you, and the best way is to send us an email, americanbusinesspodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you go to our website, americanpodcast.tv, you can also see our coming schedule. We post it on weekly basis, and you can see the coming episodes, who's going to be our subject matter expert guest speaker, and what we will be talking about, the subject that we'll cover. You can see that as well. Also, we have a new sponsor, IPVanish VPN. So we put the link on the screen. I use IPVanish VPN. Works solid. If you are looking for VPN, IPVanish is a good choice. You can use the link that I'm sharing, and we appreciate their sponsorship and support for your company and organization. If you like to be a sponsor, if you like to advertise on our fast growing popular business podcast, you can also send us an email, americanbusinesspodcast@gmail.com. We will be happy to work with you and craft a mutually beneficial business sponsorship or advertising environment on the American Business Podcast. Well, we are completing season 1 on the American Business Podcast. Well, we just started earlier this year, and we are growing really fast, and we truly appreciate your support. And season 2 is also starting in June. So we are very excited. We truly appreciate your support, and we have a ton of informative and educational subjects that we put together on our pipeline. We have a really good pipeline for entire year, so it's gonna be fun. So we'll complete season 2. Season 3 is coming, and we keep planning for you, and we'll make sure that every week you get the educational and informative business content from us. I'd like to thank you for your time and thank you for your interest. I am looking forward to having you at the coming American Business Podcast episode. Thank you very much and have a good weekend.